Hi everyone. Thank you so much, Rachel. Appreciate the exciting music. You know, it's summertime, so why not celebrate a little bit? We all wish we could be under a tiki hut, but love the fact that you're all more interested in activating your employer brand than a tiki hut and a drink with an umbrella right now. I'm going to really start off by introducing, give me the rundown on who's going to be helping you today. We're really excited about what's happening with employer branding in the marketplace. And we've done some really good things with our partners over at Indeed and Glassdoor. And so we're going to take some time to go through that today. I think there's a lot of opportunities for really every type of company in every industry to upgrade what they're doing in employer branding. So on the Indeed side, we're going to have Jason Kutriko, and who's our senior recruitment evangelist and a longtime friend who's been on the agency side as well. So thanks so much for joining us, Jason. We've got Oksana Klein and Scott Price on the Indeed side. Both Oksana and Scott have worked with HireClix and support our complete client portfolio with all of the Indeed solutions and support and technology issues that we might have. So thank you, Scott and Oksana, for joining us as well. And last but not least, from Glassdoor, we have Keith Strubing on. We partner together on one of our really most strategic accounts, and I'm going to let them all do a quick little intro on themselves, just so you can get to know them a little bit more. But thank you all for being with us today. And why don't we start off with you, Jason?
I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity. My name is Jason Kutriko. I've been with Indeed for just over 4 years. March 12th was my anniversary. And I truly love what I do from an employer evangelist or recruitment evangelist side. I've been in recruitment marketing for a long time. Prior to Indeed, I did, as Neil had indicated, I worked in the digital recruitment ad space for about 9 years, just outside of Boston. And all in, I've got about 22 years of recruitment marketing experience. So I truly look forward to the opportunity because I am passionate about employer brand and the story that we tell as employers. So thank you.
And Oksana?
Hi, everyone. I'm Oksana Klein. Thank you for joining today. I am an agency development partner at Indeed. I've been at Indeed for about 6.5 years now. Loved every minute of it. And I work very closely with HireClix and their clients and Neil as well on strategy, optimizations, education, and just all things Indeed. So thank you again for joining today.
Scott Price?
Hey, everybody. I'm Scott Price. I've been at Indeed about 5.5 years now. And as Neil mentioned, Oksana and I own the partnership, the agency partnership with HireClix. And I can easily say the best part about my job is getting to partner with HireClix. So really excited for you guys to see all this material, and thank you for joining.
Excellent. And last but not least, Keith.
Yep. Thanks, team, for having me. Keith Strubing. I've been at Glassdoor for about 6.5 years at this point. Initially focusing on working with clients that were not engaging with their employer brand or helping to share that story. And now I've transitioned to working with existing clients, many of which are HireClix clients, which I'm excited to say, to help kind of deepen their employer brand strategy and build out what a good employer brand looks like on Indeed and Glassdoor. So thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks so much. And we can just bounce on down to the agenda. Perfect. So, what we're going to walk you through today is just, real quickly, I'll run you through this: understanding your employer brand, the rise of employee voice, telling your authentic brand story. Just being true to yourself and your own brand is so critical. We're going to talk a little bit about Indeed and Glassdoor solutions that we've used, and talk about some of the success stories that HireClix has had. And just as a quick intro on HireClix, I started the agency about 12 years ago. We're based north of Boston, and the background on myself and some of the other folks that have been here for a long time is that we used to work over at Monster, and we were, basically an internal consumer advertising agency at Monster. And so what we've really tried to do is help our clients bring the sense of urgency and metrics-driven recruitment marketing campaigns in order to develop best ROI, to drive candidates, and to eventually, measure the success of those campaigns and make hires. So again, we're a recruitment advertising agency, and we're really excited to talk about employer branding because we're at a critical crossroads right now. So with that, I'll turn it on over to Jason Kudrico.
Yep, I appreciate that, Neil. And again, thank you again for the opportunity. I mentioned earlier that I'm super passionate about employer brand. It's important, and truly it's the foundation, right? That's the way I look at things today. And when I was managing my career 4 plus years ago, it was amazing how some people were managing their employer brand, activating their employer brand, and engaging with candidates through their employer brand. But there was also a ton of organizations that fell short. As I had indicated, I've worked in the agency business, for 9+ years, and this is where I truly became passionate about employer brand, creative, marketing, messaging, and ultimately utilizing the mission that we have here at Indeed, and it's to we help people get jobs. And again, that foundational aspect is your employer brand. So as we sit here and as we talk about employer brand, I think it's only apt that we ask this particular question. And why is employer brand so important? Right? Today, especially. And I think when we think about employer brand, it's literally what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? It's that information that either your employees are conveying or sending out, or the people that experience good or bad things with your organization, and then they talk about it. Employer brand is truly why people go work for you, and at the same point, why people do not. Okay. And we also know this for a fact because 80% of job seekers today, right? In a survey that was done April 2001, 80% of these job seekers or employees are out there testing the waters, or would be willing to listen to a little bit more when it comes to opportunities. Individuals want to better themselves, both personally and professionally, and now they have opportunities. We know this because based on just this data here, which by the way is provided by our hiring labs, which is about 6 economists on the Indeed side where they're creating this type of information. This talks about the total job postings on the Indeed platform by occupational sector. As you can see here, we can do 8 at a time, but in this particular case, we just chose 4: retail, driving, nursing, personal care, and home health. And what we're indicating here is that as of July 1st, so about 10 days ago versus pre-pandemic, personal care and home health, 72.6, nursing, 62, 48 for driving and retail, 39 basically percent. That's how many, the percentage of jobs above where we were pre-pandemic. I guess what it's the point to all of this is candidates have opportunities. They have opportunities, which means you have a much larger, or excuse me, this means a larger sort of base of job seekers are out there looking for the right opportunity. And this is the time for you all to share that brand story. And what I mean by sharing, it's that activation aspect. Keith will talk a little bit about that activation aspect, but I definitely want to tease it. What I mean by tease it is let's talk about some numbers, right? When we look at Glassdoor on a monthly basis, we see about 55 million unique visitors or users to the platform. Now, with regards to Indeed, we have 250 million people coming to our site on a monthly basis to search for jobs, post resumes, and ultimately research companies looking for opportunities. Now, I'm not a math major, but I do know that between Glassdoor and Indeed, we have approximately 305 million people coming to this platform. Now, when I say 305 million, you could say to yourself, well, what does that technically mean? I mean, is it a large number? Yeah, it's a large number. But when it comes to the job seekers, what does that actually mean? What it means is between Glassdoor and Indeed, we reach 80% of all US online job seekers. This platform, these platforms, through products and services and education, provide you all, the client, an opportunity to activate your employer brand. And again, activating your employer brand is pushing it out there, letting people know your story. Speaking of story, we dive into understanding your own employer brand. Employer brand is hyper important, and it's all about that reputation. And we know this now more than ever because of the research we have done on the Indeed side. In 2021, we ran a survey of roughly just under 8,000 job seekers, and 82% of these job seekers indicated that the reputation or a company's reputation when evaluating a new opportunity is very important or extremely important. And I think if we take a step back from this and take our talent acquisition hat off and put our consumer hat on, this is where things relate. And what I mean by that is, as I raise my hand, how many people have done any online shopping? in the last 2+ years, right? I would say the majority of you, if not all of you, have. When you're doing that and you're doing that research, are you looking at a company's reputation? Are you looking at that star rating? Because it's important. When you want to go to a local Italian restaurant, right, and you do that particular research, Italian restaurants in your town, what are you going to do? Are you going to make a decision based on the information you are given? I think you are, right? It could persuade you. It could persuade you to go to that restaurant. And at the end of the day, will you be going to that 4.6 or will you be going to that 2.6, right? And again, this is what we deal with on a consistent basis. And this is what job seekers are doing. Job seekers have this opportunity and they're truly finding or trying to find, the right spot. Now, when it comes to your employer brand and its impact, it's literally throughout the life cycle of the candidate experience. This, as you see here, these 5 sort of stops along the candidate experience is an abbreviated version of it, right? When we talk about searching, we know that 24% of job seekers say they look at reviews and do research even before they look at a job, looking for the information, looking for things that appeal to them. Okay. Now, as they start to dive in and do their particular research, 69% of the job seekers say they read these reviews after they find an opportunity. So they do a search, they find something that piques their interest. While they're doing that and continuing to read and educate them on the opportunity, they're going back and looking at reviews and trying to engage, right? They're utilizing their network, seeing if there's anybody that works at this particular organization so they can engage and they can get a better understanding of what it's like to work there. Now, as applicants go through the apply process, 30% of these individuals read reviews during the interview process and after they've applied. When they're interviewing, guess what? Spoiler alert, they still look at these reviews. 9% of job seekers say they read reviews throughout the interview process with prospective employer. And then when we get to the accept offer stage, we still are doing our due diligence. We're still trying to find out if we're going to be happy at this particular company or organization. I'll be even, willing to bet that it would continue on when we talk about onboarding. But in this particular case, we talk about search, research, apply, interview, and then ultimately doing that research to find out if they're going to be happy as they accept that offer. And happiness is important. We all know this. If you're happy, in most cases, you perform better, right? Work is important to helping people thrive, and thriving people create that thriving business. We also talk about happiness and how it creates success and not vice versa. It's a business imperative for every company to have happy employees. Happy employees potentially produce more, and at the same point, happy employees are more willing to stay. Unhappy employees might perform a little bit less, and they potentially will be looking to leave. And I think we all know what the cost of turnover is within your organization. It's a lot. So how we feel at work impacts our entire life. We've all had good days, we've all had bad days, right? And ideally, the best part about this is the individuals we interviewed, the job seekers, truly feel that they most certainly can find happiness at work. And again, when we're thinking about things holistically, right, your employee experience will affect or hinder your company's reputation. We look over here and we see the employee experience. Think about the employee experience from the time they search for a position to the time they read your job description, to the time they do research on your site, Glassdoor, or Indeed, to the time they go through the apply process. This experience creates that positive, or in some cases, a negative aspect. And again, from there, they will tell people. You go to that restaurant and you have that wonderful steak or seafood or veggie entree, you tell people about it, right? You also tell people when you have a poor experience. So you take that employee experience and you combine it with the brand story. And again, that brand story is what attracts candidates to your organization, and combine them, it equates to that brand promise. And your employee experience and your reputation is your employer brand. The rise of the employee voice. Wow, this has never been more important, and we've seen a lot of it, right? Because your employees are dictating the opportunities that you all have within your organization. If they're happy and they're talking about it, that's a good thing. People want to be a part of that. If they're unhappy, they're leaving, right? And as they leave, people are seeing that a lot of individuals are leaving. So these people, these employees have the power. You can find those champions within your organization to help spread the good word. And when we talk about spreading that good word, we always talk about diversity, inclusion, the information. What does it look like to you, the diverse world, right? It's not just about men and women, and it's not just about people of color or things like that. No, it's about everything. It's about where people went to school, their backgrounds, how we can include this, how we can be a part of the community and engage in a diverse aspect. Because at the end of the day, if you were going to build a company culture today, would you do the same things we did before, but just slightly better? Or are we going to look at things that are new and make those old ways obsolete? What I mean by that is, are you going to talk about the foosball table in your break room, or are you going to talk about the focus on remote work or hybrid work? Are you going to talk about the pool table? Or are you going to talk about flexibility within your organization? What about well-being? What about mental health? Talking about these things now has to be at the forefront versus in the past where we might not have talked about it, right? COVID has done a lot of things to help job seekers understand what they truly want when they're looking for opportunities. And what they want and what they're looking for are three main things. First, flexibility, okay? 88% knowledge workers, say they're looking for something flexible. Now, again, in the retail space, in the healthcare space, merchandising, driving, logistics, flexibility could mean a lot of different things. It could mean a longer lunch. It could mean shorter hours, different shifts, those types of things. It's looking at its core and finding out truly what makes people happy within your organization and then pushing that out. I always talk to my clients when we talk about content. And what I mean by that is job titles, job descriptions, the information you're putting out there to educate people. And one of the things I ask is you need to put the important things first. Okay, you have to put the important things first. And some of the clients have said to me, hey, Jason, what is the important thing for this XYZ role? Or what's the important thing for this ABC role? And in most cases, I don't necessarily know that silver bullet, but there's something you can do and it's very, very simple. Okay, what I mean by that is if you hire an individual today, doesn't matter the role, ask them why they accepted the position. All right, ask them why they accepted. Don't give them any sort of answers. Just say, hey, Oksana, we just hired you. Congratulations. Can you do me a favor? I'm doing a little bit of research. Why did you accept the role? Let them tell you that it was the compensation, it was the commute, it was the flexibility, it was the people, it was the benefits, it was the park right behind the building that allowed you to go for a walk at lunchtime. Okay? Keep that information. Then what you should do is talk to your employees in that particular role currently that have been there 1, 3, 5, 10, or sort of 100 years and ask them, why do they stay? Again, don't give them any answers. Why do you stay? Let them tell you. Some of the information they give you is going to be the same, but a lot of it will be different. Now, what's powerful about both of these here is the first one is what attracts people, right? That's attraction. Then you have what people tell you, right? Why they stay. That's retention. You have attraction and retention. Taking that information and pushing it out there. That's where a lot of that flexibility comes from. That's where a lot of that diversity comes from. 86% of employees assert that their diverse workforce will become even more important as roles and skills as the company evolve. And then lastly, the purpose, the sense of purpose. 70% of employees said that their sense of purpose is defined by their work. This brings us to the last portion of my section here, and it's telling your authentic brand story. All right, you have the opportunity here, right? You've got your employer brand, you have your pillars, you want to talk to specific individuals. So now let's go out and activate it, right? But before we do that, you need to craft and build, right, a company's reputation as a great place to work. Be powerful. Again, focus on the good, focus on the areas where you need to make improvement. It's okay. Nobody's perfect, right? Because also by pushing out and educating people on your opportunities and educating on who you are and what you're doing in the community and those types of things, your brand will be increased. Your brand awareness will increase. And the more people see you, the more likely they are to apply to your roles. Employer brand is important to the job seeker. They need to see you invested in that. And the way I sort of break this down is a sort of a quick personal story. Is a few years back, my wife and I wanted to purchase a new vehicle. She wanted a Chevy. She wanted an SUV. We found the color, we found the interior we liked, and at the end of the day, we found 4 dealerships that had that. We shrunk it down to 2 because these individual dealerships were corresponding with individuals via their reviews. They were having a back and forth conversation. Obviously, not all reviews were good, right? Some of them were bad, some of them were good, but they showed that engagement and they admitted fault. Whereas some of the other dealerships we were looking at didn't do a thing. There was positive reviews, negative reviews, people yelling, people screaming, people clamoring that they were the best in the world, but there was no engagement. We chose the two dealerships that were engaging their sort of consumer brand aspect of things, right? So this is no different. Engaging, having these people, read reviews, respond to reviews. You don't have to respond to all of them. You don't have to respond to the good or just the bad. Just have that sort of engagement. And at the end of the day, 86% employees and job seekers research those company reviews and research this information while they're going through this research. Now, last slide here. Therefore, when we're going to manage and we're going to move forward and activate your organization's employer brand, there's 3 simple areas that you can focus on. First, make your job content relevant to a post-pandemic world. How we recruited individuals 2 years ago is completely different than it is today. People want different things, right? People need different things. Your organization has to evolve, all right? Second, deliver happiness in ways candidates are seeking it. Find out why people are happy, find out why people are staying, and then talk about that and engage. Look at what people are saying about you in your reviews on Glassdoor, in your reviews on Indeed. If they're talking about something and they're praising you and you have a 3.8 star rating for this, I don't know, for management or payment and compensation, talk about that because that's important. And then lastly, and there's no shame in this game, gather inspiration from how others are succeeding. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. I'm not saying look at organizations that are outside your sector. What I'm saying is take a peek, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're saying. You ever watch a commercial and be like, oh, I like that commercial, or that billboard, I like that billboard, right? Why do you like it? Take a step back and utilize those things to your advantage. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, you could have the best brand in the entire world, but if people don't know about it, people will not apply. Which brings us to Keith's section. What Keith's going to get into now is a little bit of the activation aspect of your employer brand. Keith?
So, as mentioned, Indeed and Glassdoor have now joined forces, and that's going to give you the most reach, capturing 80% of US online job seekers across both platforms. So in partnership with HireClix, we can now support your employer brand presence across both of these platforms from one central team. So when I say employer brand presence, I'm speaking about a few different things here. That's really every touch point with a candidate that your brand has during the application process, from initial interest to the interview process to negotiating and accepting an offer. Jason highlighted when folks are actually engaging with your brand, all the way from that initial interest all the way to the actual hire stage. We've talked about the importance of managing your employer brand, but what does it actually mean when it comes to down to brass tacks, and how do we actually help you with that? So on the next slide here, we're going to talk about something that we call the Employer Branding Hub. The first portion of this combined approach, called the Employer Branding Hub, is the Indeed Company Page Premium. And as you can see here, it's filled with features to influence the audience on Glassdoor to actually take the next step in that application process. Every upgrade from the free version that you're seeing here of your company page gives you the opportunity to share more about your employer value proposition and control the narrative when engaging with candidates and showcasing your brand. One key component that I want to highlight about this is that the company page premium not only lives on this home page where people can come and visit and look at interviews and overall sentiment about your organization, but that information is going to be included in job postings and company alerts throughout the Indeed ecosystem, furthering the value of your employer brand as people relate with it when it comes time for them to look at your organization. The second portion of what we call this employer branding hub is your Glassdoor enhanced profile. So similar to the Indeed company page premium, this profile is filled with a bunch of features to share your employer value proposition and influence candidates take the next step in the application process. The theme that you'll see here is being able to take control of the first impression and put your best foot forward in a very, very incredibly high competitive talent marketplace. So this is your way to stand out. Additionally, through the employer center that you have in your employer branding hub, you would have the opportunity to gain access into valuable review data and insights from both platforms in one central place, giving you competitive data and actionable information. So all this probably looks great. And you're probably wondering, like, how does it actually translate to applications? How does it translate to like what things will actually happen to people when they see my job? And with the employer branding hub, and keep in mind what this is the Glassdoor enhanced profile and your Indeed company page premium. On average, employers who purchased this hub saw a 27% increase on job clicks and a 34% increase on apply start clicks. So at the end of the day, these aren't just additional photos and videos that we're adding to your job postings. They're actually translating to people resonating with them. Because as Jason had highlighted here, people need more than just words on a page for a job application. They need more of your story and why it makes sense for them to work there post-pandemic. Not only does it impact jobs, but it actually impacts exposure for folks coming to your employer brand hub. So again, back to this piece here, employers that did have the employer brand hub saw a 12% increase in the number of candidates actually visiting their page. But while this is awesome, and the few pieces about this is really going to tell the story to the folks that you're already getting in front of. Many of the organizations that we've partnered with are now looking at how do they find an additional audience. So now that we talked about the impact of the employer brand hub, that's really just the first piece. And the next piece is really how do we find more people to get in front of and amplify the awareness around your mission, vision, and values. So we see that through our internal research, when candidates interact with your brand, they're 11 to 15 times, when they interact with your brand 11 to 15 times, they are 8 times more likely to apply to one of your open jobs. So how do we increase the frequency of how we're getting in front of folks? And that's through a solution that we call display advertising. Many of you have already looked at doing some of this before, but this is highlighting a client that has the employer branding hub and has this display advertising solution that we're highlighting here. And as you can see from the statistics on the right of all high quality metrics towards their jobs and their total application increases, one of the things that we're seeing here is that all around their key metrics are being impacted because they're going out and finding folks that don't know about them and then showing them their brand 2, 3, 4, 5 times to get them to eventually commit to entering into that application process. One other thing here too, I think that's even more impressive is we take a look at how many times an employer is being engaged with organically just by job clicks. And this is highlighting what an employer saw before and then after they were using Glassdoor display advertising. And one of the things you'll notice, I think it's pretty obvious here, is that they jumped from the 132nd clicked employer in their industry and went all the way up to number 10. So as we think about trying to stay top of mind and trying to stay relevant for candidates, this is one of the key ways employers are leveraging solutions that we have to make sure they're staying top of mind. And as more and more clients begin to focus on alternative strategies to stay top of mind, building grassroots efforts around employer branding will help create this sustainable groundwork to kind of take control of whatever the future holds. So I will send this back over to, I believe, Scott now.
Thanks, Keith. I love hearing that information. It was really great. So as we mentioned, investing more in branding has been a huge initiative for HireClix. And we've seen major impact for those clients who started investing in branding and those who have increased their overall brand spend on Indeed and Glassdoor. So we have a few metrics to share with you guys. So HireClix has 10% more clients investing in branding solutions than the benchmark. And HireClix also has clients that invest 40% more dollars in branding solutions than the benchmark. These investments have led to a great ROI for these customers. And I'm going to kick it over to Oksana. She has a few data points that she's going to share with you.
HireClix and Indeed analyzed HireClix clients who had activated their employer brand in conjunction with sponsored jobs. versus those that only utilize sponsored jobs. So this is how we went about understanding what the differences were. So we then reviewed apply rate and cost per apply as our success metrics to understand what the impact of this would be. The data actually showed that as job seekers interacted with both a client's sponsored jobs and their enhanced branding, they were actually 44% more likely to apply to those jobs than job seekers who only viewed sponsored jobs alone for that client. In addition, we actually found again that as job seekers interacted with both a client's sponsored job along with their enhanced branding or their activated brand, their cost per apply was significantly reduced by 46%. So in reviewing all of this data and comparing those two different data sets, clients that had activated their brand versus those that did not, we actually saw that the clients who utilized the power of sponsored jobs along with an activated employer brand showed a much greater return on investment. These are very high numbers, so we're really excited to see what the impact was. So this really just goes to show that clients that are using the power of both in this day and age, in this market, in this economy, are really able to track and understand and see an ROI from brand in conjunction with sponsored jobs. So we're very excited to see those results with HireClix clients.
I'm just gonna comment on that, both what Scott and Oksana said, since we were talking about some of the data as it relates to branding. It's one of those things that doesn't happen overnight. You know, our team, our entire team, you know, the marketing analysts and director of client services group spends a lot of time investing in understanding the new solutions that Indeed and Glassdoor have available. And it's not a matter of just flipping the switch. It's talking about, you know, what's the proper amount of investment, what's the proper timing, what's the proper creative that we can put together to stand out. As Jason mentioned in his part, you know, job seekers have choices and a lot of choices right now, given the state of the employment market. And we really want to help clients find a way to win. It's not just a matter of posting the job, sponsoring the jobs, and hoping for the best. It's a matter of like our team working together with partners like Indeed and Glassdoor to invest in the time to understand the best solutions, to activate them, and to make sure that we're following the dollars. So, you know, as part of our key takeaways here, you know, just knowing who you are as an organization, you can't, you know, package up something that you aren't and sell it to the marketplace. You'll be exposed very quickly. And so you really have to be, you know, true and authentic in your messaging. And in your creative. When Jason mentioned creative and that, I mean, I totally agree that that's one of the best parts of being in recruitment marketing is that we get to think about ways to capture, you know, the emotional part of what it's like to be part of a company. And I'd say, you know, in talking to a lot of clients, and we've just worked on some research that shows that a lot of clients are underinvesting what they're doing in creative. And it's hard to activate your employer brand, as we have here in the next takeaway, unless you've got good, fresh creative. It's hard to go to the market and be excited about just like recycling some sort of, you know, creative that's been around for a long time. And as the HR, you know, function and talent acquisition team, like it's often hard to get the attention of the corporate marketing folks to get your help. So that's where an agency like HireClix, who has a creative service that can jump in and like take the assets that you have, follow the corporate brand guidelines, and then really help activate your employer brand. Next, you know, even though we're doing branding right now, we're talking about branding right now, you know, a lot of the advertising we do is, you know, direct response advertising. And that's when we sponsor a job and we look at how many applicants we get from that job. Just because we're doing employer branding doesn't mean we're relieved of measuring ROI. You know, if we make an investment in a Glassdoor display advertising campaign, you know, we need to figure out, you know, how many impressions did we get and what were the results? What was the return that we received for that investment? And I think the data that Scott and Oksana just showed you with that lift of, you know, actual apply rates and reduction in cost per apply are really easy wins. And once you start showing an ROI like that, it's often very easy to go back to the well and, you know, ask for more dollars once you have a success story. One one of the key things I think we do when it comes to measuring ROI with clients is that, you know, we don't have to go ask for, you know, a 6-figure budget to do something. We can test, learn, and test in a way that really structures what is success and what isn't. And when we test with a smaller dollar amount, it's often a lot easier to go back to a CFO of small, big, medium, you know, you name it, Fortune, you know, 500 company. And when you show an ROI with a smaller budget, it's often a lot easier to get additional dollars for branding campaigns. And with HireClix, the last part I would say is the takeaway is that, you know, we really try and focus on what I would call core employer branding. You know, we've got this place where people have the highest level of intent to look for a job when they're on Indeed and Glassdoor. And so how do we make sure we're doing more to activate our employer brand there? But with HireClix, you know, we're able to, right at this moment in time, we're running employer branding campaigns on Spotify and YouTube and TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram, like, in, you know, other, I mean, even, you know, weather.com. So it's really, we really try and focus on activating the core employer branding assets first, like Indeed and Glassdoor, because people are there, our jobs are there, and people have such a high degree of intent. But then because, you know, job seekers have choice, we often help our clients get their brand out into the marketplace. So that way we can start chasing down job seekers where they spend a little bit more of their time. So that's kind of the summary and key takeaways. Keith, Jason, Oksana, Scott, I don't know if you guys want to add anything at this point. I
think you're spot on, Neil. I appreciate that sort of feedback. And I think at the end of the day, you know, moving forward and activating and tracking and measuring, I think also one of the key takeaways to think about is it's evolving, right? This is one of these things that what we talk about today might be different in, you know, another year from now. Just it's all based on what like sort of job seekers are doing and how they're engaging with not only the content that's out there, but engaging you as an organization. So again, working with partners like HireClix that help guide through the process, that are masters of sort of that space. And then they ultimately utilize partners to help sort of move forward and help your organization become more strategic and more successful on the Indeed and Glassdoor platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%. It's definitely evolving. Like, you know, what's happening today may not be the same thing that's happening 12 months from now. And, you know, people talk about a recession. It's hard to imagine, you know, but like even in a recession, that's, you know, there's a lot of people. I was just reading an article about how to gain market share in a recession, right? It's often one of the best opportunities to build up your reputation. So hopefully, you know, things don't turn in that direction. But if they do, there's a rationale behind grabbing market share, grabbing mind share of job seekers, you know, in any type of environment. So, Keith, sorry, do you have anything you want to jump in on?
I was going to just reinforce a lot of what Jason was saying. Like you have the support team here and the thought leadership to be able to focus on what's important and help you drive that strategy. Like you have an entire team, and as things do continue to evolve, like you can lean on us as partners, right? Lean on the HireClix team. Like we have the resources, we have the best practices, you know, and you're not on an island, I think is kind of what it comes back to too. Like we have plenty of ways to support you, because sometimes this can look like you're climbing up a mountain, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, I don't know if Scott and Oksana, if you have anything you want to add. If not, we could bounce it over to, I think Oksana, you were going to handle questions for us, if that's right.
Yep. Just wanted to thank you, Neil, for your perspective. It's always great to hear what, you know, leader of HireClix has to say and what your thoughts are on where we stand now and the evolution of branding, like we were just discussing. And thank you to Jason and Keith for fantastic branding content that can help this audience that's on right now help activate your employer brand. So I hope that was really helpful for everybody to kind of understand you know, overall what the picture is and how HireClix can also help along with Indeed and Glassdoor. So for now, we'll move to our question and answer portion of the webinar. So I see there's a couple questions. But for our first question, and actually before we get into them, if you have any questions, anybody on the call, feel free to put them in the Q&A box and hopefully we'll be able to get to them by the end of the webinar. But our first question is actually for Keith. Can you please highlight what Indeed and Glassdoor offer to support brand strategy? Yeah,
to circle back on that, it's what we call the employer brand hub. It's just a fancy way to say that it's your enhanced profile on Glassdoor and your company page premium on Indeed, coupled with display advertising. So the first piece is really telling your story about your employer brand. The other piece is then, how do we find more folks that maybe don't have you top of mind today to come and check out you as an employer? So that's really like the three-pronged approach, if you will.
Perfect summary. Thank you.
Mhm.
Our next question, I believe, would be for Neil from Marvin. Outbound recruiting is all the rage today due to the shortage of critically skilled talent. You're advocating an inbound recruiting approach. In this era of talent shortages, how do we know your approach will help us meet our workforce plan?
That's a really good question. It's a tough one, Marvin. So thank you for that. I would say that outbound versus inbound, this is absolutely what we're talking about. Employer branding is an inbound campaign. And I think that it's not really it's not a, this or that kind of thing. I think they're both done in combination. It's not a 1 or a 0. You've got to be able to have outbound efforts to reach the right talent and leverage all that labor that you've invested in and a lot of the tools that you've invested in. But you really want to complement that with inbound marketing and inbound recruitment marketing. And some of that's direct response, where you're getting people like apply now, and other campaigns like we're talking about employer branding are introducing people to the brand, showing them impressions and influencing them. In some cases, we still do get, direct response applies from display ads on Glassdoor or display ads out in the wild. But it's really a combination of both of them. To the second part of your question, and talking about talent shortages and working with meeting a workforce plan, one of the things when I started the agency was I really wanted to pride ourselves on understanding the client's business. It's one thing to be an agency and take advertising orders. It's another thing to learn the client's business and understand their operations. So, if a client has 5 different divisions or 5 different manufacturing locations, or they have needs for software engineers and salespeople and a call center, those are all different categories of, types of campaigns that we would help them build. And so it's not just a one size fits all because you're company X. So that's really what I would say, is that we're going to talk with the client, learn about their workforce plan, learn about the headcount and the numbers, and really build a bottoms up plan on which advertising channels and which conversion rates are going to meet that workforce plan. So it's pretty detailed, pretty intense. It's not a cookie cutter approach. So
yeah, Neil, and if I can add some to this, I think Neil, you're spot on, and it's important. And when we look at the inbound and the outbound aspect of things, yeah, completely different as far as, it's very difficult. We have to go out and find these people. My sort of thought would be, what if you had a poor employer brand and a good employer brand, right? Now, if you're going out to reach out to people and have them come work for you, and you have a poor employer brand out there, is that going to make your jobs harder or easier? And then vice versa, if you have a good employer brand, is that going to make your jobs harder and easier? So when we talk about employer brand, for me, it's that foundational aspect. And it's utilizing products and services around that to activate, to help educate people on the areas of improvement you're working on, or more importantly, the areas of success that you've seen with your current employees, and then obviously current job seekers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a retail client that has a ton of software development jobs because they're building apps and really sophisticated programs, and so they're not thought of as a technology company. And so we had a video content campaign that went out to YouTube, that went out to other channels, and like we're trying to do awareness, and that really, it's a good brand, but people just didn't know they have those kinds of jobs. So thank you for adding that.
Thank
All
you.
right, Oksana.
Perfect segue into the next 2 questions that kind of jump off of this. So which comes first, build a better employee culture or focus on enhanced branding? That might be Neil or Jason question.
I was gonna say, like,
Chicken or the egg?
we can both take it, or Keith can keep smiling too. Go for it.
Yeah, for me, do you build a house with no foundation, or do you build a house with a strong foundation? What I mean by that is you could have all the money in the world and you could advertise and activate that brand, but if you have a poor brand experience, poor candidate experience, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. I don't necessarily think it's, okay, we have to do one. Once that's done, we move to the next one. It's sort of doing it in combination. And that's sort of my long-winded answer to say, or or thought process, but I think you need to build that foundation before going out and activating it.
I think, Jason, too, you talked about the importance of the employer brand. And then the next phase is then, okay, so how do we start to impact your story? And it doesn't have to be like a overnight style thing, because it's just not going to happen overnight. But there are a few things that we can work on immediately with you to make sure that you're seeing an impact in a reasonably short amount of time, without having to do a complete overhaul of all your process internally. We've seen that happen time and time with clients. So
yeah, I don't think
it's a
anyone
good
has
question.
I don't think anyone has the luxury of waiting and doing it in a linear fashion. It's just like you've got openings, you've got to fill them, and you've got to work on the brand. I mean, I think that Indeed and Glassdoor have opportunities to help you gather more feedback from employees and build out responses and company reviews that is is a positive way to get more feedback available for job seekers to check out. But I think that you have to continue to run campaigns while you're building and repairing and enhancing what experience you give those job seekers or those candidates and employees.
Yeah, and on that note, actually, Omar asked, what are your thoughts on using video content collected from current employees to tell a company's employer brand? Kind of flows really nicely into that question.
Speaking our language here, that's what we're all about, and helping to promote that. Like those are what those pages, like from a more granular perspective of what features those profiles include, is exactly having a platform to showcase some of that stuff. And there's folks that can brag about you, and they're true, authentic stories, and that's what people want.
Yeah, and I think to compile on that, Keith, is I get excited when I hear that, because in my past life, and even today, I educate people on, hey, take those individuals, take that opportunity, have a contest at your organization and say, team up with 4 people, use your iPhone or use your smartphone to come up with a 2-minute video of why you like to work here. And I think people like that, because it's not flashy. You don't have lights and cameras and production crews. You can do some pretty cool things. My kids have taught me on TikTok on your iPhone. But that is true speaking, because guess what? You could have a C-level individual, right, in their suit and tie or woman business suit, all prim and proper, talking about what it's like to work there. But I think people want to know from ground level. And I think that truly resonates. So Omar, I'm a firm believer in that. My only suggestion is keep those videos short and sweet.
Thank you. I think this question actually is for Keith. How does the Employer Branding Hub assist with attracting global talent, building out in new regions such as APAC or EMEA?
So good news, we have coverage across pretty much, I'm not going to say all regions, but basically at this point across Indeed and Glassdoor, and we have a solution that would cover every region outside of specific domains that we already have. That said, we have regionalized folks too, that would be assisting in helping to understand more of the cultural differences between different global regions. So again, that's kind of like a blanketed statement, but we understand that there's differences between different regions, and we give you functionality to be able to tell a different story, unique story, based on what those value propositions would be at each different location.
Yeah, and just our experience as an agency over the last 10 plus years is that we've had to help clients activate campaigns and drive employer branding campaigns in 50 plus countries at this point in time. So when the client says like, hey, we're expanding in Poland, we're expanding in New Zealand or Australia or Colombia, like we've had to activate campaigns in those markets. So it's good to have a partner like Glassdoor and Indeed that has the reach into those markets as a core recruitment advertising base, and then we can figure out a lot of the local tactics from there.
Exactly. It's definitely important to have a global strategy that overarches all the regions, but then also to have those individual regions be localized, perhaps in language or nuances. So that's something Indeed and Glassdoor and HireClix can absolutely help understanding both of those strategies to really capture that kind of whole global audience. This is more of a clarifying question, so might as well ask it, probably for Neil. Is HireClix a platform to manage both Indeed and Glassdoor, or is this something additional to add to the 2 methods of recruitment? So maybe we can just step back and kind of give a quick overview of HireClix.
Yeah, absolutely. So HireClix is a recruitment advertising agency. We're a service provider. So we're able to activate campaigns on Indeed and Glassdoor. But what we do is we bring all that all the campaign activity and, from those two platforms and many, many other platforms into one dashboard for people to review and analyze their campaigns. Our team, our recruitment marketing analysts look at that data, give you advice, give you feedback, and again, work with the solutions at Indeed, Glassdoor, and beyond to customize the strategy. But the other part is that we incorporate a client's applicant tracking system data back into the platform as well. So we're really trying to, be the, I think of us more of a service provider, but it's probably a technology-enabled service provider is the best way to describe it, because we're using, consumer grade technology, B2B technology to show you all the results of these campaigns from Indeed, Glassdoor, and beyond. Anything you want to add to that, Oksana, Scott? Practically an extension of the team, right?
Pretty much. Well, I guess we have no more questions in the Q&A, but perhaps while we're talking about HireClix, Neil, maybe it's a good time to just kind of continue on that path of explaining, what is your philosophy and strategy around branding, or what are we seeing this year? And we did talk about the evolution a little bit, but perhaps as it's changed and what you've seen change, what is HireClix philosophy now and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's three big things that we're talking with clients about and prospects as we try and explain what we think is important in today's marketplace. Number one is making sure that you have your core recruitment marketing dollars working for you, and we consider Indeed, Glassdoor, maybe a couple others like in the job board world as making sure that you've got tracking set up, analytics set up, which jobs are performing on which of those sites, and following that data and the dollars all the way through to the applicant tracking system. So we get a real hard ROI in our core dollars. And then beyond that, what we're trying to do is expand where we do employer branding. Sometimes that employer branding is done on Indeed and Glassdoor, but other times it's done out in the wild. And I think that that's just the situation we have with job seekers right now. We just have to find them. And I would say that both Indeed and Glassdoor also have a display advertising program that goes off-site as well. And so that's something that we didn't talk a whole lot about, but just because we talk about display ads on Indeed and Glassdoor doesn't mean it's restricted, to that. There's actually an opportunity to leverage their first-party data and chase candidates down off-site, right, Keith? And Jason, I just want to make sure.
That's correct. It didn't go too far into the details there, but it's a good call out.
Yeah, and so that's another way to extend where we can find those audiences. The other part is that we think it's really, I'd say over the next year to 3 years, it's going to be really important for TA teams to understand the value of their own first-party data. So you've spent a lot of money driving candidates back to your applicant tracking system or your CRM. And we're trying to make sure that we help clients activate those audiences that we've effectively already paid for. So how do we remarket to them? And sometimes that's done through a CRM, and we're able to help people with that. But other times that's also remarketing to them out in the wild. And so that's often an asset that's kind of overlooked by a lot of TA teams. So I think that the bottom line, when we started the agency 12 years ago, we really wanted to help TA folks think more like consumer marketers. And I think that all of the things that have happened over the last 10 plus years have really led us to this point where it's becoming more and more critical. And that's a hard job. And I think that sometimes TA folks circle the wagons and kind of don't want help and they want to figure it out. But if you look at other parts of the company, corporate marketing, IT, finance, people have outside advisors. And what I would say is that when I started HireClix, it was not to be a vendor. It's to, be an extension of your team, to be a partner, to learn about, your business. And I think our culture is built that way, that our team is really looking to find ways to better understand the client's business, because we think we can be a better agency and help them with their recruitment goals if we really understand their business at its core. So.
Yep. And as the data showed before, HireClix seems to be ahead of the curve in terms of the number of clients that you have investing in branding solutions and at higher rates. So, that all kind of goes into your philosophy. You've been preparing for this. This has always been kind of your thought process. So definitely ahead of the curve in comparison to the benchmark. So
we always ask, how can we be part of a beta? How can we be the first one to try, A, B, and C? We're always asking if we can get that early access, because we can then, going back to turning it around, making it a competitive advantage for our clients in order to recruit, better talent, more talent, everything they need to run their business. So.
Yeah. And just to add, like, job sponsorships always been our bread and butter. And years ago, like, that was enough, right? And it should still be the core strategy of your recruitment strategy, but it's just not enough anymore just doing job sponsorship, right? You have to pay to play, and you have to partner with us, right, to maximize those opportunities, to be proactive and go find those job seekers, because of how competitive it is right now. So we're here to help you all doing that.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, any of our team, whether it's the Glassdoor Indeed team, Scott and Oksana can always help us, get connected. If you don't know who your reps are, you can reach out to us afterwards, reach out to Rachel and our team afterwards. We can make sure that you're in touch with your Glassdoor and Indeed reps. And then just, from the HireClix side, connect with someone on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, and, let's just have a conversation. This, our team is very much a education first type of organization, and we'd love to talk and learn about your challenges. So thank you. Really appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy schedules to attend the webinar. Thank you so much to this panel for joining and providing all the hard work to get this information together. So thank you. All good?
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Nick.
you, everyone.
Thanks.